There were three influences that I had that made me choose surgery as a discipline. First, when I went in to take the course in my junior year in surgery, it seemed as though the surgeons did things. If you had appendicitis, they took your appendix out, you got well. If you had a cancer someplace, they took that out, you got well. They did things. They were decisive. It seems as though the people in internal medicine, if you had diabetes, you were treating it for years and years. You had arthritis for years and years. Hypertension, years and years. Surgeons seemed to be decisive, and you did something. Now, who are my three influences? When I came to the Howard University College of Medicine, by far the best known person on the faculty was Dr. Charles Richard Drew, head of the Department of Surgery. I was a member of the last class that he taught, March 31st, 1950. We didn't know that then, but that was the last class he taught. And he gave 3 lectures to sophomores, and that was the 3rd lecture. That evening, he and 3 colleagues were on their way to Tuskegee. He was driving, fell asleep at the wheel, ran off the road, and he was killed. Of the 4 people in the car, he was the only one who was killed. There has been a myth about Dr. Drew's death, that he was denied care and therefore he died. That's not true. I spoke to the 3 people in the car with him. They said it wasn't true. He received the best care that could be given at a small hospital in Burlington, North Carolina, Alamance General Hospital, at that time in our history. It was the severity of his injuries: crushed chest, major head wound, avulsion wound of the thigh, crushed wound of the thigh. So he died from what we call irreversible shock. In 1983, I went down to Alamance General Hospital to interview the people who had helped take care of Dr. Drew. 4 of them were still alive and active in 1983 from 1950. And everything that I learned there just reinforced what the 3 physicians who were in the car with Dr. Drew had said, that he did not die because he was not given adequate care. He died because of the severity of his injuries. And it's hard to get rid of a myth, but even today, and I give a lot of talks on Dr. Drew. I'm the Charles Drew Professor of Surgery at Howard. I have the endowed chair named for Dr. Drew. And I say, people say, but no, that's not true what you're saying. No, they wouldn't take care of him. That's not true. They were thinking about transferring him to Duke. Why? Because Duke is a big medical center. Alamance General Hospital in Burlington, North Carolina is a small place, a small town. It's a town, a hamlet almost. Then it's a little larger now. But that's why they were thinking about transferring him.
Why do you feel that that myth persists, that it's so hard to get rid of it?
Because it makes sense. The myth persists because it makes sense. That's what happens so often in the South. And we've heard of stories of different people who in the South who did not get proper care, who were turned away. And that's what they said about Dr. Drew, because it makes sense. But it just so happens in this case, it was not true. And I understand from his colleagues who were in the car, when they learned that this man was chief of surgery at Howard, well, he's one of us. We've got to do everything that we can. But there was nothing more that they could do. There was a statement that Dr. Drew liked to make that has lived with me over the years, and it was this. He said, excellence of performance will transcend artificial barriers created by man. I never forgot that. If you do it well enough, people have got to notice it. Excellence of performance will transcend artificial barriers.
What kind of man was Dr. Drew, and what did he mean to you personally?
Well, here is this man who's won the Spingarn Medal from the NAACP for the work that he's done in research on blood and plasma, a big name. And he could have gone out and just made a lot of money, but he wanted to share his talents with others. He wanted to teach medical students and train black surgeons. And I just give him a tremendous amount of credit for that, a great amount of credit. I believe that Dr. Drew deserves all the credit and praise he's received over the years. Now, there have been some myths created, like he created the blood bank. No, he did not create the blood bank, but he did some of the seminal work on blood preservation. So this man deserves a lot of credit. A lot of research on blood preservation, on blood plasma. Helped the Blood for Britain project become successful. Was the medical supervisor for the first American Red Cross blood bank in New York City. So just an outstanding man. So we found him as students inspirational, stimulating, and we said if we can be in touch with this man, maybe we too can do some of the things that he did.
And there were several other professors, teachers who had an impact on you?
Yes, indeed. That's Jack White, who was the first black to train at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. Dr. Drew sent him there to get trained in cancer, to come back to Howard to teach oncology, which is the science of cancer, of tumors. When he came back, he told us about all the exciting things going on. By the time he gets back now, I have just finished medical school. I'm a surgical resident. And he's talking about all the exciting things going on in New York at Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. Well, I want to go there. And he, in great measure, helped me gain admission there. I owe a lot to Dr. White, Dr. Jack White, not only for stimulating my interest in cancer, in oncology, but helping me gain admission as a surgical fellow in oncology at Memorial Hospital. At that time, it was called Memorial Hospital for the Treatment of Cancer and Allied Diseases. Now it's called Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. Of course, there's a big research component also. And the third person, the person from whom I perhaps have learned most in surgery, was Dr. Burke Syfax, who had his 92nd birthday, December of 2002, who taught until he was age 91. I owe so much to this man. He emphasized surgical principles. He is called by us at Howard master of the abdomen. We say if you have a problem in your abdominal cavity and he can't find out what it is, you're in deep trouble, because nobody else can either. We call him a master of the abdomen. He emphasized the primacy of the role of the patient. Listen to the patient. The patient will tell you the diagnosis. Listen. He emphasized that. And for me, at age 60, he voluntarily stepped down as head of the Department of Surgery in order that I could assume the position as head of the Department of Surgery at age 40. And naturally, I owe a lot to him for that. He explained to the department he thought that this would be a good move on his part, and he was still at the height of his powers then. Just an outstanding man, but emphasizing diagnosis, treatment, but the role, the patient, constantly talking about the patient and emphasizing surgical principles. So my relationship with him has spanned more than 50 years. I met him in 1950, and I'm still learning from him. I just visited him a couple of days ago, and I'm still learning from him. So those three men, Charles Drew, Jack White, Burke Mickey Syfax, all have had a tremendous influence on my life, and one other in the Department of Anatomy, Dr. Montague Cobb. He emphasized attention to detail, the value of memorization, and because in anatomy you have to memorize so much, but also he introduced me to what I call medical politics, because he's very active in the National Medical Association. He was editor of the Journal of the National Medical Association. He was just an outstanding man also. So those three people in surgery and Dr. Cobb in anatomy had a great influence on me. More than any other person, my father was responsible for my becoming a physician, because he emphasized that if you go into medicine, it's an honored profession, a respected profession, you can help people. And at the end, he would say, and you'll make a decent living. But that was always at the end. Never say you make a lot of money, you'll make a decent living and you can take care of your family. It's an honored profession, a respected profession. He didn't want me to work, because he said, you're a good student and I want you to make good grades. He died my senior year. When I was a sophomore medical student, a junior medical student, the summers of 1950 and 51, I worked as a waiter and a bartender at the Sankaty Head Golf Club in Nantucket, Massachusetts. There I met a man by the name of Walter Beinecke. And the Beinecke family has been very good to Yale University. As a Beinecke library there, B-I-N-E-C-K-E. And he used to talk to me about the value of teamwork and doing your best. So when my father died, I wondered, what am I now going to do? Tuition was $450 plus a few incidental fees, made it $500. I wrote Mr. Beinecke a letter. Said, my father has died and I'd like to make a loan of $500 from you. And I knew well enough, because he would talk to me when I was working there. And he knew that I was trying to help myself, my classmate now, because we're in medical school. Within 7 to 10 days, I had a letter from Mr. Beinecke with a check for $500. Dear LaSalle, encloses a check for $500, which came from the so-and-so fund. It was not a fund to help medical students. That's what he let me know. This is not a loan. This is a gift to you. I hope you will do two things after you receive it. I hope you will do the same thing for somebody else someday, and I hope you'll become a fine physician. I never forget that. I never forget that experience. It just meant so much to me. Here, my trouble's over. I don't have to worry about money anymore. My mother can afford to send me what I need to pay for my rent and food, because I didn't spend that much, but my tuition is paid. Naturally, I wrote and thanked him, and that was the 1951, October 1951. I never saw him after that, and I went to New York to do my training in cancer at Sloan Kettering in July 1957. I called his wife and asked if I'd come. Well, she said, LaSalle, why don't you try to remember him the way he was? He's ill now, not doing too well. He died in 1958, 7 years after he's done this favor for me. And I never saw him after the summer, August of 1951. Never saw him. And so that's how I was able to go through my senior year with a mind free of financial worry.